Hello and welcome to Media Dialogues with Storyboard 18, where I am joined by a stellar panel today. I have Shailendra Katyal, Managing Director of Lenovo, Deepika Bhan, President, Packaged Foods at Tata Consumer Products, Rohit Bhasin, Head of Propositions, Consumer Bank and Chief Marketing Officer at Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Rohit Dadwal, who is the CEO and BOD at MMA Global APAC, are here with me for an exclusive conversation on the state of marketing excellence and its true measures. They will be sharing insights on campaigns that move the needle and ultimately make it to the Business Impact Index following their role as the jury of the Smarties Awards organized by the leading global marketing trade association, MMA. Hello and welcome to Storyboard 18. It's a pleasure to have you all with me today. And I'm going to come to you first, Shailendra, and just give me a little bit of an insight into what it was like looking at all the Smarties entries, especially when it came to, making that correlation between creativity and business impact. Tell me a little bit about how important that was and what stood out for you during the judging process.
The overall experience was quite good for me. It was the first time I was participating in the MMAs. And what stood out for me was the level of experimentation. Despite the use of Gen AI being relatively new, I saw a lot of experimentation. Now, has the experimentation scaled to a level where it can be genuine business impact? Maybe not this year, but even as a jury, we said that we should encourage the behavior of experimentation and hence recognize people who made that brave attempt of using new technology. So a lot of interesting stuff that we saw of
especially
new-age
given
tools.
that you operate at that intersection of technology and creativity. But Deepika, again, for you, right, we're coming from a legacy brand. Tell me about this sort of this play between the balance of tradition with innovation. How did you see some of that also being reflected in the campaigns that you have looked at during this process?
I found actually a lot of brands doing a great job of being very true to their core. Just very true to the core brand identity while they were still playing with an idea for a younger consumer cohort across a different channel. So you can see that sort of idea of a loose brand essence. Like we all grew up in a world of more, very sharply tailored brand and the brand experience being similar across touch points. But you began to see brands operate from a little bit of a essence which you could feel through different kinds of advertising. So there is an evolution happening there in my view.
And still maybe early days, like Shailendra, you mentioned, it'll take us a while to see the real impact. Rohit, let me ask you this. If you were to say, some commonalities between some of the campaigns that stood out for you in terms of, again, having that tech infusion or really sort of cutting edge work, work that is pushing the boundaries, while of course keeping an eye on all the measures that you need for marketing excellence. If you were to sort of connect the dots between the work that won for you, what would those dots be?
I think first of all, I was out of the country for about 5 years and I came back to India last year. I think what I was truly impressed with is the amount of shift that we made from just being traditional advertising to being more about really using digital as a channel, not just to build above the line, but also to actually do below the line conversion. So that, and I think the kind of work which is coming out of India is truly impressive. So I think that was my first realization, which truly excited me to see the kind of work which is happening out of India. I think the second thing for me is creativity for the sake of creativity is not good enough. For me, good creativity is when it is effective. And when you can measure the impact of the campaign on business results, that's when you really see whether that campaign is effective or not. And the entire work that we saw, you could actually see a big shift on being able to measure, campaign effectiveness on business results. And we actually rewarded those campaigns which could measurably show positive business results. And I think that was really the common thread which I saw in the work which kind of won the award.
Where does India stand in this evolutionary shift that we're seeing, where, you're tying creativity to business results even more? We've been, as a market for advertising, for creativity, we've been previously accused of not being able to find that correlation always with really, really creative content and ads. How have you seen that shift happening, and where does India stand when you look at APAC as a whole?
So
from a Smarties perspective, if I were to step back and look at it globally, the common themes are innovation, technology, the evolution, understanding the consumer behavior. So that's pretty much the same. But where I think India definitely stands above is the whole premise of brand purpose. And I think that's something that is very evident in a lot of the case studies that we've seen. There was very compelling case studies about brand being true to the efforts of sustainability, differentiation, and some of those other activities. And the other element which I thought India kind of stands apart from some of the other work is the innovation and experimentation at a larger scale. And I think the country enables that, unlike Vietnam or Indonesia, because the population sizes are different, to do it at scale and then experiment that and to be able to drive business impact or results from there. So that is something which was truly commendable.
You know, you've started a whole new dialogue within this dialogue. Let's talk about, let's pick on the buzzword, let's pick on purpose. Shailendra, of course, purpose has been the defining trend of the past decade or more. But there's also been a lot of criticism when it comes to companies, businesses, you know, the way they leverage their purpose, defining purpose. There's been a lot of backlash against some very large companies, you know. I mean, do brands have to have a point of view, say, on war or politics?
Yes.
So purpose is very, you know, controversial at this point in time. As a business head, tell me a little bit about how you think about, you know, that purpose when it comes to your marketing.
Right.
What's your take on it, and how has it evolved over time? And I'll get to my second point of that question, which is linking purpose to profits.
From a consumer or a customer point of view, a purpose which is not delivered authentically is not something that the world wants. And a lot of this purpose-driven world was becoming a little bit of lip service, which is where some of the backlash also comes through. From my personal point of view, do brands need to have a purpose? It does help, right? If you're, as long as you're authentic to that cause and you stick to that for a fairly long period of time. If you're changing your purpose every quarter or so, or if you're not being authentic about it and you're paying lip service, obviously doesn't help. Does purpose lead to profit delivered authentically? And Deepika spoke about being consistent, right? Some sense of the brand essence has to be consistent over time. Some excitement has to come through for the sake of newness. But any well-chosen purpose delivered authentically over a period of time has to result in profits. And we've seen that at a corporate level, right? Look at the Tatas, for example, or the Wipros of the world. They're built around a philosophy and a purpose.
Right.
And they're reasonably profitable enterprises. So there is a path to profit if you stick to a purpose. But it has to go beyond advertising and lip service.
Absolutely. Deepika, let me ask you a similar sort of, stay on the same line here. You know, like Shailendra mentioned, Tata brands have been at the forefront, pioneers in a sense in that sort of purpose-driven movement. Tell me a little bit about how you see that, how you see connecting those dots between purpose and profits.
Yeah,
Is
like thank you for asking, because I was going to jump in. I think I was going to jump in because I think that if there is a question on whether brand should be built with purpose at heart, I am certainly in the yes camp. Like, I don't see a debate, right? Of course, it is a given not only for this context, but in any context that brands, I think in this age, will have to operate out of authenticity, right? So I think that's a given. But a brand, and I would say a business, you know, brand is the way that it comes alive, has to be built with purpose at heart. And I think that when you're able to, it doesn't mean that you have to draw the distinction about whether it has to arrive at every aspect of your advertising, you know, since that sort of becomes a bit of a checkpoint sometimes. But working out of authentic purpose, and I think it's not only about advertising. See, ultimately having purpose at the heart of why you do what you do, the energy drives across the entire community, stakeholder, your internal team. It makes a big difference.
It drives culture.
Yeah, and ultimately, I really think that the woke consumer that we are all, you know, where we are heading, it is going to make a difference. But to his point, when authentically done.
Rohit, let me ask you this again. Given your background, of course, also in FMCG, levers, a pioneer in the purpose-driven movement. Currently in financial services, where of course trust and authenticity is a huge factor. Give me your take on the power of purpose.
I think to add to what Deepika said and you said, I think purpose is what defines what the brand stands for. And I actually believe that if you really don't have a purpose, then what are you living for? And actually, it's not just about a brand. Purpose is something what defines you as a person. What is that one thing which you really stand for as a person, as a brand? And I think it's very important to define that for your brand. But it is not that let me wake up today morning and do a purpose workshop and say this is my purpose from tomorrow. It has to be deeply rooted in why you were created in the first place. And the real purposeful brands are which have actually not looked at purpose as charity or as CSR, but purpose as which is deeply rooted in the reason why you are existing in the world for that. And I think the brands which do that very well stay purposeful and evolve with time, but don't lose the core of what they stand for. And the brands which do it for the sake of being purposeful come across as inauthentic. Even in the case of financial services, I think trust is not something which is just important in financial services. It becomes more important in financial services because your money is at stake. But whether it's a beauty cream or a food product or a clothes that you wear, purpose. I mean, trust is important in every category. It just kind of scale may change based on how involved you're in that category versus how less involved you're in that category.
And of course, these are very complex times we live in. Technology moving at a pace that, some people might find hard to keep up with also. Rohit, a lot of the theme this year, even at Smarties, was leveraging technology, leveraging AI. So again, the impact of AI on brands and trust, how do you see that playing out? And are you seeing anything that stands out in the kind of work that arrives at Smarties?
Yeah, so interestingly, this year we actually had 3 different categories on AI about audience engagement, experimentation in advertising using AI, and so on. And when we were devising that, and the only thought that we were working with the task force and the team was, what is it that we are trying to encourage the industry to do? We've spoken about experimentation, but the idea here was, is there enough that needs to be done, and how is it to be done so that we can live up to that value of trust or the original ideation, etc. Because as you know, technology can be a double-edged sword, and it can also be used for the wrong things. How do you put the best practices in front of the audiences, in front of the marketeers, and learn from some of that experimentation? And across the world, not only in India, but across the world, the 2 broad themes that I've witnessed is the excellence of the marketing campaigns, the marketing excellence piece. Using AI has actually enhanced the value of the campaign. It has delivered better results. It has delivered better engagement with the audience. And partly going back to your earlier question on brand purpose and different point of view on that, is the new age consumer is much smarter than we believe they are. They understand purpose. They understand purpose because they know how to live by it. They are doing that, and therefore the engagement, even using technology for content, for generative AI, they understand the difference. What is authentic, what is not, which content is generated by AI and which is generated by the brand. And a lot of that is reflective in those campaigns, which was not very difficult to miss of what was genuine and what was not genuine. And that was pretty rewarding to see marketeers around the table being also able to see it, because at the end of the day, the consumer knows what they want. And they are far more intelligent than when we were growing up at young consumers. We can't fool them now.
We were just talking about Gen Zers, Shailendra. Tell me a little bit about your take on what Rohit said about leveraging technology and AI for marketing excellence.
Again, AI is such a broad topic, and it's been around for a while, right? The difference is now that it is sentient and a lot more generative. Um, I think this will go way beyond marketing and advertising. It will touch all our lives. It's like the birth of the internet or the birth of digital as a thing. What shape and form it will take, nobody can predict with any certainty. Can marketing ignore it? Absolutely not. So the smart thing to do is to adopt as much as possible. In fact, governments are debating how much to regulate, because there's this topic of responsible and ethical AI also coming in, given deep fakes and what have you. One view is that don't regulate it, wait for it to evolve. Otherwise, if you regulate it too much, the generative power will kind of die out. So Gen Z, will they adopt to it? They'll take to it like a fish to water, right? Nobody had to teach them how to get onto social media. Even a kid at 10 years old opened up a Facebook or an Insta account. So they'll take to us faster than older people. They'll experiment a lot more. I think we are still seeing the birth of the infrastructure for AI. There's a large language model, maybe some part of the compute will come into your phone or your laptop. But the real thing will be killer apps coming in. So imagine internet getting created, but Facebook, Insta, WhatsApp happened much later, right, as the evolution. So killer apps will come. Marketing will have to change and evolve to adopt Gen AI as possible. And yeah, Gen Z will take to it better, and they're smart enough to distinguish a fake from a from the real stuff. But it has to go way beyond advertising. It has to be every part of the customer experience, like we spoke of. It's not just in the there's a lot which can be done from the end-to-end life cycle of the consumer.
Rohit, let me ask you this. Is it now finally the time when we'll sort of see the promise of personalization come true with AI? Because we've been talking about personalization, hyper-personalization for a very long time. But do you now think that we will really see that happening, that promise really coming true?
So actually AI, for me, I think this bit about AI in marketing, I think is a very limiting point, because other than the traditional uses of AI where you can automate stuff to reduce costs, give a prompt and get thousands of images generated, that for me is a very transactional and limited use of AI. For me, the real use of AI is when you can, look at millions of data points. You can look at millions of data points and actually find insights using which you can create personalized propositions and benefits for customers. And I think that is for me the biggest use of AI, which is going to come, where you can actually, we always spoke about, n is equal to 1, where can I create a personalized proposition for you. And that has always been like a dream. But I think with AI, that is what's going to happen. And if we use AI well in that space, we'll get better relevancy. We'll build better personalization. And that's what you see in a industry like banking or financial institutions, because you cannot get stronger data than this industry, because you have all the data about your customers.
Absolutely.
How do you use that data to actually predict what the customer wants even before he or she knows that he or she wants it, and then really build the most relevant, personalized yet dynamic solution to meet his or her needs? And when you do that, then you start thinking of using AI to grow your business than just to deliver a better and more cost-effective campaign. I think that's for me the best use of AI, and we are doing a bit of that. But that is where all our journeys have to reach towards.
Have a slightly different view to this use of data, and that is where I think regulation will come in. Right now, a lot of AI is public AI, which is where misuse and all that concern is also coming through. You will see the younger generation make that choice of not giving you the data, which is where then you'll have to personalize in a very different way.
That adds value to their lives.
And they have to opt in to give you that data. Right now, you're using public data to say that I can predict your customer behavior and I want to engage with you in a targeted way or hyper-personalized way. Imagine if you don't have that data. So this whole concept of a lot of big data being available for marketers to chew on, that I don't think has a very long shelf life now, whether it's 5 years, 10 years. Some brands have already created closed ecosystems, right, in technology, where they don't let data go to go outside the ecosystem. So 2 points there. I think personalization will take a very different shape.
That using technology, but of course not losing that human touch, human intelligence. Deepika, how do you make sure that we don't lose that? That we don't lose that in this rush to, infuse AI in everything, these new tools in everything. Everything is so much, you can do things in 2 minutes versus 2 days. How do you then not lose that human touch, that innovation that comes from perhaps the slog of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, AI isn't a substitute for upstream strategy, right? I mean, ultimately, what do you want to do? What really is the brand thinking and the brand strategy, let's say in this realm or business? I think that, in my view, actually becomes even more critical because the worlds, I mean, the choices are limitless. And so, what AI, let's say in this case or in any case, allows you to is to be able to go sharp, but you have to be very clear about where you're going. So, I think that two parts to that. The first is, of course, I think in general in business, certainly in the context of AI, I think it is opening up such a large plethora of possibilities. Like even as an organization, you know, just there is so much you can open up. Actually, there's so much more internally at the back end sometimes that can resolve for you. So just being very clear about, I think one, that all parts of the organization are experimenting. What are the big ones we want to go after, so that there are some places where we have excellence. I think that is important. So experiment, but also focus a little bit.
Today's world gives you this chance to experiment like crazy. Experiment. Second thing is, world is moving from brand speak versus others speaking about your brand, and therefore how do you build alliances, influencers, other people talking about your brand, because today's customer is not going to be interested in what the brand says. It is more interested in what others talk about the brand, because the sources of authority are changing. Adapt to that, and therefore work with this ecosystem rather than trying to work on it alone. That's what really what I would be looking forward in 2025 and beyond.
That's a great note to end our conversation on. Sources of authorities are changing. AI is changing a lot of things as well. And I know, like, as marketers like to say that everything is changing all the time, but it truly feels like a lot of change coming at us. Thank you so much to all of you for this really engaging conversation and insightful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Thank you, Delshad. Thank you.